It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad and John Show. It is the Brad and John Show for Wednesday. I was going to say Tuesday, but that was yesterday. Wednesday, March 26th. This is the B Block, which starts at 7:22. Okay, this morning, there was a congressional hearing. The head of PBS and NPR are both going to be on the congressional hot seat, and Marjorie Taylor Greene is spearheading this. Essentially, this is part of DOGE, where they're essentially saying, okay, why are we paying for this? And like I mentioned when I was listening to NPR yesterday, they talked, or when listening to St. Louis Public Radio, they say they're going to dedicate one of their streaming channels to broadcast this live this morning so you can hear this, okay? The interesting thing about this is I referenced an article that was on the stlpr.org website back in January, matter of fact, January 15th. I'm going to ask you, are you familiar with this? You're probably not, are you?
No, huh?
Okay. The headline of this article is, and once again, this is 2.5 months ago, answers to your questions on federal funding for public media and why the CPB is still a sound investment. And it goes on to say, as an NPR member station, St. Louis Public Radio is part of a larger public radio network that includes 1,300 locally and independently managed stations funded in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Together, that network blankets the country with free and accessible programs regardless of population density, income, or geographic challenges. Okay, they give this long dissertation about how all the important things that NPR does and what St. Louis Public Radio do. You want the bullet points here? Here's your bullet points. Ready?
Yeah, I'd love to hear. Sure.
Hallmark educational content. Now, let me think about that for a minute. When you listen to NPR, is there a lot of educational content? I mean, to me, educational is, now boys and girls, 2 + 2 = 4. Am I missing the point here? I mean, what is educational content? Are we education?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it should be up to them to define what educational content is.
Well,
are you educating a citizenry? Well, or are you educating kids?
Back in the day, you probably don't remember this because you're much younger than me. Back in the day, during the day on Channel 9, KATC, they used to have courses. They had telecourses. And I can remember in school, sometimes they would wheel in the TV set and we would watch a show that was being broadcast live on, not necessarily live, but it was over the air on Channel 9, and it was an educational show. I don't think they do that anymore, do they? Does PBS do stuff during the day, like for schools and stuff like that?
I doubt it. Yeah, I really doubt it.
Okay. Here's number 2. Important public safety communications during natural disasters. Okay. Here's the interesting thing. Every radio station does that because of the fact.
Yeah, every station does. Every TV station does
that.
Right.
And the cell companies, too. We're mandated. How many times have you been in a grocery store or something like that when everybody's cell phone goes off at the same time? It's the, that noise. And it's
Yeah, I turn those notifications off so I don't get emergency notifications. But yeah, most idiots that don't turn the notification off, their phone goes ringing.
Okay. Professional development and resources for teachers. Okay. John? Can you explain that one to me? What does St. Louis Public Radio do for teachers?
Now, are they saying, is this the National Corporation for Public Broadcasting objectives, or is St. Louis Public Radio trying to take credit for this?
Okay, it says CPB's investment directly supports local stations across the country and enables them to provide essential programs and services. If federal funding is eliminated, public media stations could be forced to cut some or all of the followings. In other words, they're saying that CPB provides this information to local stations, and St. Louis Public Radio, KWMU, NPR, the affiliate, does this. Okay?
I see what you're saying. So what they're saying, now how I read that, Brad, is CPB puts it all together, and some stations, which may or may not include St. Louis Public Radio, can choose to, St. Louis Public Radio could choose to take some of that content and air it to educate teachers. They're not saying that every station does that. They might be implying it, but they're not saying St. Louis Public Radio goes to the Normandy School District and teaches children or teaches teachers how to be better.
I think they
should. I
get
your point. And to answer your question, no, I don't know anything St. Louis Public Radio does to help local teachers be better.
Nor do I. Matter of fact, I've got some teacher friends. I'm going to call them up after you get off the show and say, hey, they'll probably be at work already, but hey, what does St. Louis Public Radio do for you at your school? And I would be willing to bet the answer is, I don't think they do anything. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course not.
Okay, 2 more bullet points. Music and cultural programming. They do the cultural programming. I don't know. And music, I don't think they do any music at all anymore. And then local newsrooms and personnel providing information essential to the well-being of local communities. John, make your comment on this. If it wasn't for St. Louis Public Radio, we would have no coverage of... Go ahead, John.
Black, disabled, Shakespeare in the Park performances. If you have a local former National Guard member who's a transgender with a bum ankle and an obesity scooter, who's helping direct a play at the Muni, or even better, in the Muni parking lot, St. Louis Public Radio is there.
Okay. Here's the next next question. What portion of St. Louis Public Radio's budget is reliant upon CPB funding? Okay. If I were to say to you, John, throw out a number, how much money do you think CPB gives KWMU per year?
Like what percentage?
Well, there's 2 numbers here. There's an actual cash number, and then there's a percentage. So take a guess at both of them.
Well, I would say Corporation for Public Broadcasting only provides St. Louis Public Radio with maybe 1% of their fund.
6.2% of St. Louis Public Radio's projected revenue, which is $575,000, which means a little over $500,000 is 6% of their projected revenue. Okay, do the math on that. I'm not real good at this, but let's round it up to 10%. If it were 10%, then their total revenue would be $5.7 million. So if you add a couple more decimal points or a couple more percentage points in there, would it be safe to say that their revenue is about $7 to $8 million? Would that be safe to say if it's 6%?
Wow, yeah. If that's so, they're saying that St. Louis Public Radio is saying that their revenue is. But wait a minute. Are they saying they get $500,000 a year from Corporation for Public Broadcasting?
$575,000.
I as a shoot, legitimately, I had no idea they got that much money of our money from Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Right. Okay. And here we go again. The majority of our revenue comes from support from individual donors. About 22% comes from sponsorship members. Now, and it says, what would happen if St. Louis Public Radio loses CPB support? STLPR would immediately seek to raise the $575,000 in missing CPB funds from our donors and corporate sponsors. However, stations across the country rely on pooled resources from CPB, including satellite interconnection, emergency alert systems, the ability to license music, and to develop educational programs. The whole network would be impacted in ways that would also impact St. Louis Public Radio. Okay, now here we go. And here we go where this is my complaint. Okay, my complaint is we've done this live on the air. We've gone to the stlpr.org site, and I've counted. If you look at their staff, they have the little thumbnail pictures of all the staff members. The last time we counted, 34 different people in the newsroom.
That's right. Yep. We'll go with that number. We don't need to count it again. We'll go with that number.
Okay. A week and a half ago, when the tornado hit and came through the St. Louis area, hit out in Villa Ridge, destroyed one of my favorite Burger Kings and the C-store I used to go to all the time, and did tremendous damage to Purina Farms and impacted a lot of businesses out there. Matter of fact, I was through there last night. They still don't have everything up and running. The fence has been put up around what used to be the Burger King and the C-store. Okay. I went to the stlpr.org website the next day on Saturday, and there was one story, and I would be willing to bet you that there was not one single reporter from St. Louis Public Radio that actually drove out to Franklin County, which would be like, OMG, they would probably come, I'm not going out there, I'll get cow manure on my tires of my car. And if I get out of my car, I'll get cow manure on my feet. I can't go out.
Yeah, and we know how those Prius tires are. Like, have you ever tried to scrub a Subaru tire, Brad? You're not going to get cow manure out of there.
Okay, here we go. Why is public broadcasting needed when we can get news from so many sources? Local public media stations provide critical information to help citizens make informed decisions. For example, during the pandemic, St. Louis Public Radio provided health and safety information that helped area residents make decisions to stay safe. At that time, STLPR.org had the largest audience in its history serving the metro area. During the recent natural disasters in North Carolina, get this is my favorite paragraph. During the recent natural disasters in North Carolina, when residents had no power, local public radio stations were the only source of current and comprehensive information on the recovery efforts. That is 100% bologna sandwiches, because I can document all the commercial broadcasters who were in there doing work. Matter of fact, I am a ham radio operator. My son turned me on to a group of hams, a bunch of who were engineers at various radio and TV stations who set up what they call repeaters and were relaying emergency information because the cell systems and everything had been knocked out. They say they're the only source, and goes on to say, a nonprofit public media continues to provide a high level of service to communities while other local media outlets are shrinking or closing. Public media abides by rigorous ethical standards to ensure our content cannot be influenced by commercial interest. In a time when anyone can post their opinion to social media, journalism grounded in rigorous fact-checking is essential to inform the decisions that affect our health and safety, our finances, our democracy, and our future. And blah, blah, blah. It says, can I take action to advocate for continued support of public media? You can make your voice heard by visiting protectmypublicmedia.org for resources to help you contact members of Congress and sign up a petition, blah, 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 blah. And it says, how else can I help to continue STLPR's mission? We will require your ongoing, continuous, generous support. If you're already a member, we say thank you. And if you're not a member or you can give more generously, now is an excellent time to join or increase support. Okay, having said that, I do listen to NPR quite a bit. I listen to St. Louis Public Radio, okay? NPR does an absolute positive, great job on their national and international news. They do an excellent job on the war reporting of war. They have reporters in battlefields and stuff like that, which for the most part you don't see that in commercial broadcasting anymore, except for the TV networks and maybe the CNN and Fox and stuff like that. So I will give them credit on that. But their news is so incredibly biased it isn't even funny. Matter of fact, I think one of the guys who's going to be testify today is our buddy Yuri. What do you call him? Yuri Berlander? What was his name?
Yeah, Yuri Berliner. Yep.
Okay, Yuri Berliner, okay, who wrote the scathing review of NPR about how he worked at NPR in D.C., and there was not one single person that he could point out who was a Republican or who voted for Trump. Not one single person. Now, let's be honest, John. If you go back to your days of working at Monsanto/Bayer, if you were able to, say, okay, Jim's a Democrat, Jill's a Republican, Bill is a Democrat, Melinda is a Republican, and I'm not trying to say it's just all men and women. Wasn't there a mix of political viewpoints that you work with on a daily basis of your fellow employees?
Yeah, absolutely. And it didn't matter as long as you did your job well and you executed, for sure.
Right. And I guess the thing that all you have to do is listen to, I can't remember the name of this stupid show, What's My Line, or He Said, She Said, or something. It's a really good show. It's like they do it out of the Studebaker Theater in Chicago. Remember that? I got a mental block with that.
So wait, don't tell me.
Wait, don't tell me. Okay, I can never remember that. Okay, anytime they mention like Trump, the audience, whoa, so you're going like, there's booing and there's hissing. And it's like, okay, we have a very unbiased audience that listen to this program because the people in the audience are emblematic, are a sample of the overall general audience. And I told you the story about how Scott Simon, the very, nice guy, he sounds, matter of fact, I'll give my Ron Jacober parallel. He sounds like a really nice guy, Ron Jacober. And then, I had my...
you know how you feel about Ron Jacober.
I had my only meeting with Ron Jacober. I love Ron Jacober. I thought he was great on Channel 5 doing sports for years. Then he worked at a local radio station when I was doing my traffic network, and he was a jerk to me with a capital J-E-R-K.
And you were making a point about Scott Simon and Greg Gutfeld?
Yes, because he had Greg Gutfeld on, and he tore Greg Gutfeld apart. Because the story was, why is it that Greg Gutfeld, who's on Fox News, is beating all the other late-night hosts? Okay, John, you can answer that question very easily. Why is it because of Greg Gutfeld? Why is it that he's beating The Tonight Show and all the others? Why is he beating them? John, tell me.
Because he's singing, he is not singing from the progressive hymnal of approved talking points and approved guests. He has people on that offer an alternative viewpoint.
And not only that, he's still funny. I wish I could find this. I heard this played on, I can't remember what station I was listening to. It was an old 60 Minutes piece going back like maybe 40 years where 60 Minutes did an in-depth interview with Johnny Carson. And I believe it was either Harry Reasoner that was interviewing him or I can't remember the other reporter. It was one of the old-timey 60 Minutes people. And they asked Johnny Carson why he did not get into politics. And he said very succinctly, it was a great quote. I'm going to try to find it somewhere. It's got to be out there on the internet somewhere if I heard it on another radio station. He said to the effect, I can't quote his words exactly, but he's a comedy guy. People look at his show for escapism. They look at his show to have fun. They watch his show to as a diversion. I mean, I'm putting words in his mouth. He said it much better than I can say it. And essentially he was saying, look, there's other places where people can go for politics. We're sort of a safe zone. You come to us, and if we're going to talk politics, we're going to make fun of both sides of the aisle. We're not just going to be like Jimmy Kimmel. Oh, Trump, he's terrible. He's the Nazi. He's a terrible guy. We're not going to do that kind of stuff. And it was just to the point I thought to myself, this is Greg Gutfeld. I mean, he, obviously he's on Fox, and Fox has their angle on it, but it was very well done. And Scott Simon's like, well, and you're insulting Chinese people, and come on, like it's like comedy isn't comedy about essentially, observational comedy, isn't it about making fun of different ethnic groups? Italians, I mean, they're always eating pasta, I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, like Jewish people are always eating bagels, I mean, like, matter of fact, there's a guy here in St. Louis that is a mortgage guy. Do you know this? He's the brother of Scott Rosenblum. Do you know Stuart Rosenblum? You know who that is?
No, I don't know him.
He's American Finance or whatever his name of his company is. He's got a deal where he calls, when you get a loan through him, it's called the bagel loan. Why is it the bagel loan, John? Take a guess.
Well, a bagel loan refers to like you have a big thing in the middle. But I guess what you're suggesting is that he's calling it what's been known nationwide for decades as a bagel loan. You're suggesting that he does it because he's Jewish.
No. It's 0% interest. In other words.
Oh, I see. I thought you were referring to the traditional bagel loan.
No,
okay, go ahead.
I'm not I'm sorry, I made a mistake. It's not zero interest. It's zero closing cost. In other words, he doesn't.
I see.
He doesn't
and
charge.
So he's making a joke because he's Jewish.
Right, because he's Jewish. He eats bagels. Hey, his name's and he's what's his name? Scott. I just said his name. I'm getting
Scott Rosenblum.
No, but this is his brother.
Okay, we got it.
Okay, so once again, I mean, you poke fun at yourself. I mean, you and I kid all the time about North County, us being North County boys, all the crazy stuff that went on in North County about Stelmachi's Market and stuff like that, about all the crazy things, the things that went in North County, and to the point where I wish I could get approval from a friend of mine. I'm not going to mention his name, but out of the clear blue. This is a guy I've known for a long time. Actually worked for me a long time ago. He sends me just musings. He sends me he just puts his phone in record, and he records not video, just audio. He records like little snippets of audio and just texts them to me. And he's talking about North County. And I'm going to call him in after I get off the air and say, hey, can I use this on the air? Because he was exactly right. He's talking about how North County is so poorly, thought of, and people think you go out there and you're going to get your tires shot out, and you're going to, you know what I'm saying. And once again, it's this crazy narrative that is not being, reinforced. And the crazy part of this is, think about St. Louis Public Radio. How much of their reporting is, because they are in North County, how much of their reporting is in North County? Very little. Most of their reporting is Central West End, right? Because everything's going on in the Central West End, right, John?
Yeah, and I would also say in their defense, the type of people who listen to NPR or who give money to NPR probably live in the Central Rear End. They live in Creve Coeur. They live in Tower Grove South. There's not a lot of families that live off Bell Fountain Road or Lilac that consider themselves NPR devotees. They don't go to Aldi with a St. Louis Public Radio tote bag. In the winter, they don't bundle up with a St. Louis Public Radio scarf. Like, working black people don't sit around wondering what Diane Rehm would have to say about national security.
Do your Diane Marine voice. Let me hear it. Go ahead.
I'd love to talk longer, but it's 7:42 and we've got to get into C block. This is the Diane Rehm Show, sponsored by K-Love. They paid for my voice adaptation. It's 2% better than it was in the 70s.